Welcome to Recently Logged, where this week, Ripley will never be ballin'. We're coming back for another late night episode.
Another late night episode.
Recently logged after midnight.
Micah, will the listeners ever learn, will they ever know if Ripley was ballin'? Of the Alien franchise?
I guess they'll have to watch the movie for themselves. to know it's not worth it.
It's not worth it.
To know if she's ballin'.
Wow.
But this week we are continuing our beautiful, wonderful, expansive series going through the Alien movies.
Yeah. The sequels to the movie Alien.
Yeah. And the prequels, too.
And the prequels.
We'll get to those at some point.
That's coming later.
But we already did Alien, and we already did Aliens, and we already did Alien Cubed. You can go listen to all those episodes.
Go listen to all of them. They're pretty good.
This week, we're talking about Alien Resurrection.
Alien Resurrection, baby.
The controversial fourth film.
I feel like you could just say, mediocre fourth film. I don't know. But for those who are unaware, my name is Robbie.
And I'm Micah.
And this is a film review show called Recently Logged. Welcome. Here we are.
And this time, unusually for us, we're recording at midnight.
I was about to say it's probably gonna be 1 o'clock by the time we're done with this.
Yeah, we're probably gonna have to get used to recording at night though. Because I'm gonna have to work a lot more. That's why we're recording like this now, because of my work, and that's why we missed last week was because of my work.
Lame. He's got a job.
Ugh.
But yeah, we're talking about Alien Resurrection.
Wait, here's the thing. If you guys start really massively growing our listenership, you get us enough money for this, we will the more consistent episodes.
Wow.
And I can just quit my job.
Just quit your job.
I will record an episode every single day.
Every single day. Oh wow.
Because you guys will be supporting me financially.
There you go.
So
you just have to make it happen.
So yeah, if you guys do that, I'll never miss a podcast episode.
It's amazing.
But yeah, let's get into what you need to know about Alien Resurrection.
Let's do it.
All right, so again, we're talking about Alien Resurrection. It's a 1997 movie. It is rated R. It's an hour and 49 minutes. Its little IMDb description is 2 centuries after her death, a powerful human/alien hybrid clone of Ellen Ripley aids a crew of space pirates in stopping the aliens from reaching Earth. Which is a bit of a stretch for what actually happens.
I was about to say, this does not seem like an accurate representation of what takes up a lot of the movie's plot.
The cast features returning Sigourney Weaver.
Yeah.
Winona Ryder. Dominique, I don't know how to say his name.
Dominique.
Yeah, I thought it was just Dominique. Yeah. I second guessed myself in recording.
With the Q.
I literally read his name and was like, yeah, that's Dominique Pinon. Yeah. But then I second guessed it. Ron Perlman. Gary Jordan. Michael Wincott. Kim Flowers.
Very nice.
Dan Hydia, I think. Maybe.
Interesting, yeah. No, I never thought about how to pronounce his name.
I don't know. Yeah. Who knows? Only he knows.
Wow.
And others.
The very high efforts research of Recently Logged showing through.
Again, if you guys if you guys bring up our listenership, I will do so much more research.
Oh my gosh.
It's directed by Jean-Pierre Jeunet.
Yes.
Jeunet.
Jean-Pierre Jeunet.
And it is written by Joss Whedon.
Joss Whedon of Firefly and
Buffy
the Vampire Slayer.
The Avengers.
And the Avengers. How could I forget?
Cinematography. How would you go for
Darius Kanji? I just assuming.
Very, very prolific cinematographer, though. He did Seven and Uncut Gems and Midnight in Paris, Okja, Panic Room. He's got some great work.
He shot Bardo, which I love the way that movie looks.
And he shot Delicatessen,
Yes.
which is a movie by the director who directed this.
Yes. Good cinematographer by my standard,
Very
honestly.
much so. And do anything else that they need to know? Any other person you want to mention specifically?
Any other person? No,
Yeah,
I was just going to say, like,
cast, crew.
I don't know. I feel like this is kind of a strange, like, sequel. Like, it's not in the same, like, period as the other ones necessarily.
What? I didn't. What? For some reason, I didn't know that.
What?
Chad
Stalinski?
I don't know how to say. Yeah, Stalinski sounds right. The guy who, directed the John Wick films.
Yeah, John Wick guy.
I didn't know he was a stuntman for a long time, but he did stunts in this film.
Oh, you didn't know that?
No,
That's funny, yeah.
Yeah, he did stunts in this film.
Micah, why do you think John Wick is the way?
I did, I should have known he was a stuntman.
Right.
Happens to the best of us.
That's pretty cool, though. I didn't know.
But
I should have watched the credits more closely.
You should have.
I could have spotted a John Wick alumni.
A John Wick alumni. But yeah, that's all you need to know. Period. That's it.
Well, at least to listen to this podcast.
No. Forget any other education besides our poorly pronounced, poorly researched intro.
It should be your only source for information.
Yes.
Wow.
That's all you're allowed to grab from. All right, let's get into our actual thoughts on the movie. Darn it, I do this every single time. Every single time we've done one of these alien movies. And I'm like, oh yeah, we're going to talk about two different cuts, which is something that you'd probably want to know in the basic facts. But we're going to be talking about probably mostly the special edition of this movie.
Yes.
That's the 2003 special edition. And it's very minor in changes.
Yeah,
and we'll probably also talk about the theatrical edition.
Yeah.
We'll probably talk about them both because they're so similar in this one specifically. And the special edition was kind of superfluous in this specific instance, unlike something like Aliens and Alien Cubed.
Yeah, especially for something like Alien Cubed, my goodness.
I think it's supposed to be just Alien 3. I don't actually know. We keep saying Alien Cubed, but I have no idea.
You got to keep it up, Micah, at this point.
But yeah, so we're going to be talking about both editions. We've watched both of them. So if you're interested in that, keep that in mind.
Yes.
But Robbie, what did you think about Alien Resurrection?
Alien Resurrection. It's kind of sad, I think, really, with how much I've enjoyed even like what I think is the weakest one, Alien Cubed, that I had seen up to this point. I was like, you know what, it has its problems, but it's still good. But like when I was watching Resurrection for the first time, I was like, ooh, it's like dipping into a kind of amateurness that the franchise hadn't really touched up to this point. Like it feels very juvenile in so many ways, and like just kind of inexperienced, but also like that's mostly from a writing perspective. I also like think it's really well crafted from a cinematic perspective a lot of the time. Its visuals and like effects and the cinematography and direction are all honestly probably like better than some of the previous installments. Like it just pops, and like all of the imagery is really evocative, and like it works really well from that like perspective. But like thematically it doesn't stack up at all, and kind of honestly undermines a lot of the stuff established previously in this franchise.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have kind of a mixed feeling towards it, because like the xenomorph stuff in this is like super cool sometimes, but like the writing just generally is bad.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel very mixed about it, especially after seeing the special edition cut, which I think is marginally better. It flows a bit better, which is one of my, I was about to say, one of my big problems with watching the theatrical is I was like, wow, this just really has like no rhythm to it at all, essentially. And the special edition kind of gets more of a flow to it, but it's still not great. But like, yeah, I don't know. It makes me sad more than anything. But yeah, what do you think of Alien Resurrection, Micah?
What do I think of Alien Resurrection? Well, how about you give us a rating of it first, Robbie?
Gosh. I probably...
What did you give the theatrical edition?
Okay, theatrical, I rated it a 2. I think I'm going to give the special edition a 3. We just finished watching it maybe 20 minutes ago.
And again, within context, he doesn't give half-star ratings.
I don't give half-star. If I give half stars, it would probably be a 2.5. But I think I'm going to land on a 3 because I really do enjoy it at the end of the day. But there's so many things holding it back from being a really fun movie by any standard. Or even just a fun movie.
A really fun movie by any standard, or just a fun movie?
Just a fun movie. There's just so many cool things about it that I want to love it more than I do. It's just kind of... Ugh. But yeah, that 3 out of 5, I think, is what I'm landing on.
Very generous.
It is a bit generous, but...
yeah, what do I think of the
What
movie?
do you think of Alien Resurrection?
I think you put a pretty good pin in the fact that the big general takeaway, I think, is just that I'm sad about it.
Yeah, it just makes me sad.
It's kind of depressing to watch something because, again, on one hand, at times this movie is showing you how much of a better movie it could be. You'll get scenes, moments, and you'll be like, wow, I wish I was watching that movie. Yeah. And, you have this really fantastic craft when it comes to the cinematography and the imagery, like you said. It's very powerful. It's very unique for the series. Mm-hmm. And
it feels like something totally new that we haven't seen before.
if it was a little bit more scary or horror-esque, which it doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be.
But if it was, it could easily be one of the scariest of the series with this style direction.
Easily.
You could tell a lot of the influences, again, from something like Delicatessen and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
You can really feel the kind of uneasy, kind of wonky way he likes to shoot his movies.
I was about to say, it's very it's much more modern surrealist than a lot of the other Alien movies have been.
But with that, it's also really, really, really stupidly written.
It's kind of dumb.
It's a dumb as rock screenplay that doesn't have any solid anything to offer, paired with sometimes some really bad structure work and editing.
Yeah.
And you have a great cast, but characters that are paper thin, even in the special edition when they give them a tiny smidge more characterization. It's like the bare minimum, and now they've said 2 sentences instead of just one.
I was feasting on crumbs when it came to development in the special edition. I was finally new tidbits about these main characters in the movie.
And on top of that, there is something that genuinely really bothers me about the movie, in the fact that it's got this weird tendency, I wonder if it has to do with its writer at all, to kind of be really weird about its female characters and be weird with how the other characters treat them.
Yeah.
And the theme of sex and femininity and stuff like that, which are strong themes throughout.
I was about to say, typically I wouldn't bother mentioning that if it was just a 90s sci-fi film, that would come with the territory, product of its time, whatever. But it's such an integral part of the Alien franchise.
With a series like Alien to come into a movie like this, it just feels very antithetical to the rest of the series and feels really kind of offensive, in my opinion, at a certain point, to what they're doing with the characters, which again, Joss Whedon does not have a great idea about women or how to treat women.
Yeah.
So what can you do? But it just really bothers me, and especially coming off of something like Alien 3, which dealt with a lot of, kind of iffy topics when it comes to stuff like that. A lot of stuff to do with sexual assault and things like that, very serious topics, with a bunch of guys treating the only female character very poorly, but it did it for strong thematic reasoning, whereas this really just feels like it's window dressing to be like, oh, look at this person, aren't they so hot? Or wow, all of these men are only treating them as sexual objects just cuz.
It's really weird.
It's just weird.
It just feels out of place.
And it really makes me turn off to even wanting to try and like this movie more, when the movie on the whole is just very disconnected and not really many of the elements, even the good ones, connect well with each other.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point.
I gave the theatrical cut a 1.5.
Oh, wow.
And I gave the special edition a 2.
Yeah, I was about to say, I saw your 2 rating just now, and I thought that was for the theatrical too, but yeah.
Yeah, the 2 is...
Well, there you go. You got a half star
special edition
higher.
is just
little better.
The bare minimum better.
Yeah.
It's inching toward the 2.5, but it's still not there.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
So that's kind of our basic thoughts. Let's get into some more questions and some deeper discussion on the movie. What do you have any questions to open us up?
Sure. You mentioned kind of like a dissonance between a lot of the like virtues of the movie, but I was gonna ask specifically what you thought of it, like visually, like just cinematography, and even its design stuff, if you wanted to get into that at all.
So that's very interesting, because the visuals of this film are definitely a strong point, and you can feel that coming in, but I don't think they inherently always benefit what the film is going for. They do oftentimes, I think, because this movie, I think, is a lot campier than most of the other Alien movies, which is fine. Each of these movies have very much taken the idea of Alien in a very different direction.
Which is one of the nice things about the franchise, is that each film kind of feels singular, but
I was about to say,
like
Alien is like a very Ridley Scott horror movie.
Yeah.
Aliens is a very, very James Cameron action movie.
Yeah.
And, you know... Alien Cubed is Fincher to the core.
David Fincher all the way, man.
So, like, they're all very different feelings. So it's fine that this one has a little bit more of a campy feel. And that very much is played up by some of the performances that come with the direction. And that really lends itself to this kind of goofy, almost surreal, lots of interesting angles that always accentuate people's faces. And, like, you get a lot of interesting facial expressions and use of motion of the camera.
Oh, yeah.
It's very nice.
It feels like a really nice, like, fresh direction for it to go visually.
But honestly, it also doesn't feel like it really has a place to go. It doesn't really feel like it's really adding that much other than being visually interesting and different. Like, specifically for an example, I just thought of this. This is a good example. There's a scene later in when the doctor guy, who's mustache twirling evil for no reason.
Wait, ponytail guy?
No, not ponytail guy.
The other guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know how distinct these characters are. And they're in the ship, and he's threatening Winona Ryder's character. And like they have this scene with the one guy who's got the alien in him, and he's like, and he chases him down, and he starts fighting him, and doing this really interesting thing. And the music is very intense, and it feels kind of like it should be a kind of almost scary moment or whatever they're going for with it. And the cinematography feels like it accentuates that. It feels... I compared it while we were just watching it to Evil Dead, like, you know, Sam Raimi style Evil Dead. It's that kind of feeling, but surrounded by the rest of the movie, it just feels kind of meaningless and pointless and out of place. It doesn't really mesh with the movie totally, because it's not a Sam Raimi style movie at all, and it's very much out of place for that kind of beat to happen, and it doesn't hit like I feel like it should. It's not a scary moment while you're watching the film.
Yeah, and again, I don't want to just singularly point to the screenplay for that, but like it feels like the direction and like overall visual style of the movie is kind of like misunderstanding what the script is doing.
Yeah, they feel kind of there feels kind of like a dissonance,
because like the direction, like the way the performances are kind of shaped and everything makes me feel like it should be scarier than it is.
Yeah, it feels like it should be scarier and campier.
Exactly, yeah. When in reality, when I'm watching it, like I do think the camera techniques and like everything like that lend itself to that idea really well.
But it's the least scary alien movie.
Yeah, like everything in between that kind of like undercuts it tonally and like doesn't really mesh with it very well.
Even the scenes where we do have aliens doing scary things, theoretically, the punctuation of the editing and the score and the tone of the scenes never really let it be. The scenes
are very strange in this.
Scary, yeah. Like they're just kind of there.
They feel very like matter of fact almost. Like you're just watching the aliens do their thing. It doesn't feel like mythic like it does in like the first Alien or like like scary and like they're running around everywhere like it does in Aliens. Like it feels just very like you're just watching
or
them.
Even the kind of visceral, more gross stuff that they do in Alien 3.
I was about to say it feels even more like
because it feels reminiscent of horror. That style.
Yeah.
Like I think the closest thing you could compare the style that it feels like they're going for in terms of the scenes with the alien is very Alien 3 in terms of like they're there for just a little bit. They do something a little bit more graphic than the series previously did,
true,
and then they're gone. And in Alien 3, it worked relatively well, especially with the tone that the movie is set, because it's such a bleak movie.
It's meant to be very bleak, very like, I don't know, very dry almost, but also like scary.
Yeah, so you have a really tangible sense of atmosphere.
I mean, it's a Fincher thriller is essentially the atmosphere.
This movie, the atmosphere is really weird. There's not really much of an atmosphere.
There is something there.
It's cultivated.
It feels distinct, but it doesn't feel formed enough to be like something.
Yeah, it's cultivated in this weird sense. I think often, and I think its biggest atmosphere problems come from the structure. The structure never allows you to really get comfortable with any specific group of people you're watching.
You can never find your footing in
There's
this
not
movie.
A main character, really. Like, seriously. There's not a main character.
Which, again, isn't necessarily a problem if they were to give some sort of driving force for the ensemble, because we do get like a very clearly defined ensemble of main characters that changes a little over the course of the movie, but like there's nothing grounding us to them at all. You can never find your footing in the story.
They really don't have any actual goals outside of like some base goals, like some base, like these people want to survive, this person wants to stop the xenomorphs, and Ripley, she's the wild card. Who knows what she wants?
Ripley's so strange,
we'll get to Ripley later. But all of that kind of comes together while you're watching the movie, paired with the weird visuals that don't really pair with the tone of the script, because it's a Joss Whedon feeling script. Yeah. As much as I hate to just say that, he does write in a very distinct style. I mean, that's what he was known for.
Say what you will about him. He has a distinct style.
I was about to say that's what he was known for with making the Avengers and Buffy. Yeah. He is like the kind of dialogue and stuff that he writes is not scary.
No.
And it doesn't lend itself to this kind of series, paired with these visuals that feel like they're trying to do something very unique and very wacky and fun and occasionally scary, paired with the fact that we have no characters to follow, so we feel kind of meandery, with kind of honestly a weird score, and it kind of blends together into this thing that has no tangible atmosphere to go along with any of these scenes. So not a single scene with these very interesting designed and shot xenomorphs are scary.
Yeah, it just doesn't work.
Like, I was thinking about even like the water scene. Like, that could theoretically be a really terrifying concept. Xenomorphs underwater.
Something like that in Aliens would be so scary.
I was about to say, and they've trapped them under there.
Yeah.
That's a really cool concept, but instead they're just like...
It's just like flat, it's just like well lit, and like you can see everything just fine, and like they're just kind of casually...
And you're in the weird, goofy, like... I don't know, Deadshot character. Like, why is he like that? What is the tone of his character? He's like, and he shoots one and it just instantly blows up. They have a huge, for how few xenomorphs there are, they have a huge xenomorph kill count. Think about like aliens. Like, yeah, they kill a lot of xenomorphs, but there are like hundreds of xenomorphs coming after them. There's like 12 xenomorphs.
Yeah, grand total kill, like 6 13. Of them. Yeah, there's like a grand total of like 13 or so of the xenomorphs in this movie, and they kill so many. They kill like 5.
They really just don't feel intimidating because of that. I was actually kind of keeping track, and with our actual quote unquote main party of characters, it's practically an equal exchange of like crew members to xenomorphs.
Yeah, it's...
And like that doesn't really give you any kind of tension, especially when you don't have much to grasp onto for like to care about these characters.
Yeah, no, and that's really the big problem here.
But trying to get a little bit more back onto the main topic that we were talking about. Another interesting thing, because you didn't just mention like the visuals and the cinematography, which again, my whole point was that they're kind of out of place tonally.
I was about to say, I think isolated in their own little like analytical box, they're actually pretty outstanding.
No, they look really good.
Yeah, they look amazing. They feel great. And like
they can accentuate the moments really, really well.
But like in the context of the full movie, it's just kind of weird.
But on top of that, some of the design work really, there's only a couple like unique moments, but the design work I think is really neat. It's not anything especially unique for the xenomorphs themselves.
Yeah,
they look pretty xenomorph-y. They're not doing anything interesting.
They look pretty much the same
as aliens.
Like aliens,
because they got the more
because they're a bit
spiny.
bigger. Yeah, they're a bit bigger. They got like the spines and everything.
So yeah, they're nothing to really write home about. They're still great designs, obviously.
Yeah.
And you have the Queen, which is the Queen.
I was about to say Queen design still great.
And then you have your big unique guy, which is the little half Ripley, half xenomorph guy.
I love that guy.
And that's a very, very cool design. I don't know if
he's one of the most compelling designs like in the franchise, honestly, for me.
I feel like we should save talking about him specifically for when we talk about Ripley. But
sure,
I really love his design specifically. It's a really fantastic pairing of human-like features with the xenomorph features.
No, the
paired
way it blends it is
just
crazy.
Perfectly to where he looks kind of uncomfortably human at points.
Yeah, I was about to say, because like he's still scary. He's got like the like kind of dislocated jaw thing going on. He's got like the sunken eyes. He looks very skull-like.
I was about to say, but if the light catches those eyes correctly and you see his face,
amazing.
He looks vaguely like recognizably like there is a human kind of structure in there, and that's really cool. And that's a really that's one of my favorite designs in the entire series,
easily.
And also really neat to me personally, who's seen Prometheus, that it kind of connects back to a lot of the design work that they later did in that.
Interesting.
Like the design feels very reminiscent of a lot of the Prometheus things.
That's true. Yeah, I haven't seen Prometheus in like 3 years or something, but I really,
which isn't something intentionally done by the creators. I mean, if anything, it would be something intentionally done by the people who did in Prometheus. I just think it's kind of neat.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think like outside of that, the design work is just good. Like it's nothing to write home about, but it is really good for the series, especially being that a lot of the effects are a lot more together than they are in Alien 3. There's some genuinely just awful effects in Alien 3.
There's some janky VFX in Alien 3.
And there's still, like, not everything looks great. In fact, in the special edition opening, the stupid bug that they smush looks so bad. And I'm really glad that is not the theatrical opening. The theatrical opening credits are so much better.
There's some pretty poorly blended, like, CG stuff in the special edition cut.
But on the whole, I think the VFX
pretty great,
and like the actual digital computer effects paired with the practical effects look really good.
I'm surprised at how well the like xenomorphs move, you know, like in the underwater stuff and everything. The motion looks pretty good.
Yeah, there were only a couple moments where even like specifically with the xenomorphs that I'm like, wow, that looks
weird. Yeah.
Whereas if you look at like the third act of Alien 3, like there's not a single moment where that alien does not look completely janky.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Alien 3, what a movie.
But yeah. As a follow-up question, just before we get into something else,
sure.
What do you think is your favorite scene or sequence? Because I thought that was a very interesting question for this.
Yeah. In my mind, there's two really big standout scenes to me. And that would be first one would be the like cloning room scene. Yeah. It's got almost no dialogue, which is for the best.
That would be my example of a scene that like shows you what a movie like there's such a better movie you could be watching in here.
But like it's got just a great atmosphere. It's got some of the like most engaging like visual stuff going on. It's got like a great performance from Sigourney Weaver. It's got some awesome effects. It's just a really cool scene, and it's actually one of the few times where I was like emotionally moved by anything Ripley's clone was doing.
It feels like they're trying to set up some kind of a theme. I wonder where that will go.
Yeah. Okay. And then the second scene that I would shout out, probably in reality my favorite scene, I don't know, would be like the initial that kind of like ending sequence with the like final big xenomorph human guy, whatever. Is there a term for that? I
don't think we have a term for him.
I didn't look it up on the wiki.
I was about to say check the fan wiki.
But yeah, whatever they're called. That final ending sequence with like his birth and like the chase and everything, and especially I don't know, I really love how expressive he is in like the ship hangar scenes.
Yeah.
Those are the two scenes that like after watching the movie I feel like I can sit down and be like, wow, that was like something that I really appreciated seeing, you know. The rest of the movie kind of
talk about the sound design on him for that scene.
When he's dying,
he starts to like make human noises, like his scream is clearly a human, like,
I was about to say very clearly, and
you can make out words, like seriously. Like I'm not joking. I swear you can make out words. He's like I'm pretty sure he says stuff like help me and like it hurts and stuff like that in the scream, and it's like crazy. It's a crazy moment.
That is one of the like, I don't know, I feel a great sense of like melancholy when that scene is happening.
Right? Which again, I wanted to talk more about that when we got to talking about Ripley. But
yeah, it's crazy, man.
Yeah, that's an interesting choice.
Those are the two scenes that like really stand out. In reality, like the cloning like section is probably the better scene, like just on its own. But I just really love the design and like general stuff they do with the like big final monster alien thing. I think it's awesome. What about you, Micah? Do you have a favorite like scene or sequence in this movie?
That's an interesting question, because obviously I think my go-to would still be the clone scene.
Yeah.
I think that's really the one that like is like, oh, look at this movie.
It's the most memorable thing about the movie in my mind.
Yeah.
Are the clone designs and like all of that stuff that's present in this movie. All of the clone stuff is very interesting to me.
The fan wiki just calls it the human xenomorph hybrid.
Wow.
Because that's what we got for
the
it.
Human morph.
The human morph. But yeah, either that scene or I'm trying to think if I even have any other scenes where I think that scene that you mentioned is really good.
Yeah.
It just feels like it's trying to do something.
Yeah.
I also really like the first little bit of the movie before the pirates come in.
Yeah, like the little like half first act that we get.
Yeah, I think that's really fun.
Yeah, that introduction sequence is good.
That's when a lot of the tone works the best.
Absolutely. It's the most cohesive part of the entire movie, like on a filmmaking level.
Right, and you got what's his face from Mulholland Drive.
Yeah.
He's really fun. Like genuinely, I love him so much. like it really felt when I first started this, I was like, oh wow, this movie is going somewhere. Yeah. This is going to be really cool. And then the Firefly Pirates came in.
The Firefly Pirates.
But yeah, I would say one of those two would probably be my favorite.
That's fair. Yeah. No, you're right though. The first like little intro sequence we get with Ripley's clone and like the surgery and everything and all of that, like the introduction to all of the military crew and everything is very compelling and like some of the most gripping stuff in the whole movie.
Dude, again with the clone scene though, like I legitimately am so saddened by that scene because it just makes me think this movie could have been amazing.
It could have honestly been probably my favorite of the series.
With this director and these ideas, because I don't think that like Ripley clone 200 years later is a bad idea. I think it's a really cool good idea, especially taken in the theoretical direction that happens in the background of this movie. And like just some of the imagery and the character stuff that could theoretically be there, my mind is just like, ooh, this could be sick. But then it's not. And that is mainly because of the pirate crew. I wanted to talk with you about that.
I don't think, in my mind, I don't think Joss Whedon wanted to write something like that. He wanted to write like a fun space romp.
He wanted to write with Firefly and Alien.
It feels like such a blatant mismatch of talent. Like I think Joss Whedon it has talent for sure.
I was about to say credit where credit's due. Even though he is kind of a disgusting human being, he can write some good stuff.
He can write something,
I think his writing works really well in Buffy. I genuinely really like Buffy. I think his writing works well in The Avengers. I think his writing works well in Cabin in the Woods. There are places where his style works.
Yeah. And I really don't think, as distinctly like individual as Alien movies can be, I think it's just a major mismatch of talent for this like franchise.
Yeah, the director writer with this is just...
the writer director combo is awful for this franchise. I think.
But I actually did want to hopefully lead into talking about the pirate crew. What are your thoughts on them? And their inclusion in the story and all that, because I have some thoughts.
I don't know, man. It just reeks of like Whedonisms, you know? Like you get like this like dysfunctional ragtag group of
quippy.
Yeah, very quippy, allegedly lovable characters.
This is like his least lovable group of characters he's ever written. I don't understand.
That just don't really bring anything to the table thematically. They don't really bring much to the table, like from an action standpoint. They just don't really add anything to the movie that makes me want to watch it anymore.
Yeah,
you know?
And like two things with that I specifically wanted to mention with them is A, they bring in a lot of like the toxic and worst elements. Again, Ron Perlman's character, which I love Ron Perlman as an actor, but his character in this is genuinely so annoying to watch.
He's the most annoying. It's honestly, if you cut out his character, I would probably enjoy the movie so much more.
Like he is written.
He's the most annoying part of this whole thing.
And I mentioned this while we were watching it, or at least before or something, that I think Joss Whedon probably could have written a decent sequel to Aliens.
Yeah.
I think off of the framework of Aliens, it probably would have been an action movie. It probably would have not been a direction I would like the series to go, but it would probably be a decent Joss Whedon script.
I was about to say, if he got to take it in his more like fun-loving, like almost swashbuckling direction that he tends to write in something like this.
But in a post-Alien 3 world where Fincher decided to take it to dark bleakness, and it feels like Joss just like didn't know fully what to do. He wanted to like incorporate elements of that.
Yeah, he wanted to make it feel. I don't know. I don't want to put words in his mouth. No. But like,
what I was working towards is Ron Perlman's character feels like a character out of Alien 3, but like without any of the weight, subtlety, tension, depth of any of the characters in Alien 3, or the tone for him to work with.
Yeah.
So he's just this awful person who is terrible to the women especially, but to everyone. He's really annoying. He does not do a single likable thing in the entire movie, and he's not really there for as far as me and my critical brain can think out for a thematic reason. He's just there. Because that's one of the crew members.
I really don't understand why he's there. From a story perspective, I get like he fits like the muscle archetype of like the kind of crew that.
But again, none of the characters
they seem to want to form.
None of the characters are anything but archetypes. Yeah, I mean, you've got they have nothing. They give you absolutely nothing. Like the captain, he is a very captainy captain.
Like I said, feasting on breadcrumbs.
He sure is that kind of swashbuckling. He's kind of a little mischievous,
a little roguish, Micah.
A little roguish. That's it. That's all you get.
That's his whole character.
Then you got that one lady, and her whole thing is just that she's hot. I think she's about hot, all that they have.
She is in love with the captain? Question mark.
And then the captain says some real weird things about
it's so
Winona
weird.
Ryder's character. Which Winona Ryder's character is the only one here with actually anything. You've got what's his face, who's like, he's kind of funny. He's a little funny, and you got the sure shot guy who's for some reason like literally like video game or cartoon levels of goofy. Like he's like, look in the ceiling and understand the perfect geometry to shoot this guy in the head.
That is like the silliest beat in this whole movie. And when he keeps ricocheting.
Yeah, he keeps ricocheting bullets and explosives like it's some kind of cartoon. Right. It just doesn't make sense.
It doesn't mesh with the movie.
And that is all you're given for any of their characters. It's not like that's like window dressing for the deeper characters that you dive into. That is it.
As far as I can tell, like that's all that was meant to be there, you know?
And well, the other thing I was going to mention, because I said I had 2 points about the crew that I wanted to mention. The second point is they kind of crash into the story and have no reason to be there.
Right.
So think about how the story plays out. It starts out, the scientists, they're cloning the alien, like Ripley to get the alien.
Ripley so they can get the
alien. They're doing that. But then there's probably going to be trouble, and we'll explore something interesting with.
I was about to say they
Ripley.
introduce the fact that the clone of Ripley has like uniquely powerful traits that they might be interested in.
And she has like essentially superpowers from the alien, and she's got like past memories from herself and from the aliens.
And they establish the fact that like it's a distinctly not like Whedon Corp plot this time. Like
so they set up all of that, which are really good ideas.
Yeah.
That's a great start to a movie.
Great setup for an alien sequel.
And then midway through, because for some reason, which again, the reason arguably doesn't make any sense for where they wanted to go with the story, they wanted somebody, they had to have an arbitrary reason for a crew to show up, so they're delivering humans for eggs.
For the eggs.
For the alien, which again, questionable with where they take it. Like, they explain it, but in a really stupid moment of exposition, and it just doesn't make any sense in general.
All the exposition in this makes me want to cringe.
But like that's their arbitrary reason for needing to be there. And then they show up and they're like, so I think you're doing something illegal here, so maybe we can just hang out for a couple days.
Right? They're like, I need to stay on your ship for a few days, and
just
for some reason, I don't know why.
They're like, okay, so that's why they're there, and now they're just the main group that you're following, and all of the military people who set up all the interesting stuff that you were watching die instantly.
I was about to say,
they all get killed off.
So many things that could have been interesting about this movie, like a possibly like anti military experimentation thing. Like that angle seems so blatantly obvious, and yet they choose not to explore it very much.
Because they kill all of them off, and now you're following goofy pirate crew.
Yeah, and
again, they have no reason to be there, so they come onto the ship for no reason, and then their goal is to get back to the ship.
Yeah.
Just cause.
I don't
like their goal is that they're on the spaceship, and then for some reason they're arbitrarily very far away from their spaceship, and now that the aliens are loose, they have to make it back to their ship to where they don't die.
Yeah,
that's it. And I mean, you have Winona Ryder's character, who has some interesting depth that they try and go for.
Yeah.
She's an interesting character. I like her. And she's got purpose and drive, and they're doing something with that. That's cool. but like most of the characters,
we don't even find out about most of her character like
until way over halfway through.
Until well past the halfway mark of this movie. So we have no reason to care about her up to that point.
So again, the crew is just a disaster, and I don't know why they're here other than, again, the fact that Joss Whedon would just want to write that style. Like,
it really feels like just an undermining of a really good idea of like a clone Ripley in a military experiment.
I was about to say, the next thing I wanted to get to was Ripley. I wanted to talk about Ripley next. But again, they make 0 sense for Ripley. Right? They have no reason. The only person who vaguely does the vague themes that they're trying to kind of go for is Winona Ryder's character. But they could have...
It's too little too late.
I was about to say, it's too little too late, and it's just so arbitrary to put in with all of this. It just doesn't work.
It doesn't feel natural at all, and it feels not even substantial enough to really matter at the end of the day. So
because you have that weird split in the first act between your two groups of people as well, it even gives you less time to get any investment in any of the characters.
I was about to say, I don't mind the fact that like potentially this movie would not have Ripley in any form as the main character. That's fine. Whatever.
If Ripley wasn't in this, I wouldn't even be mad.
Yeah. But it just feels so torn as like a movie. Like why is the crew here? They don't give a good reason that they should be the leads of this movie or like your anchoring force for the story at all.
I think Joss Whedon just only knows how to write weird archetype characters who quip.
Which, again, can work at times, but does not here.
Like, literally, think about all of his work. The Avengers, a bunch of archetypes that quip at each other. Cabin in the Woods. Literally the whole thing is that there are a bunch of archetypes who quip at each other. Buffy, there are a bunch of archetypes who quip at each other. That's how he writes. So I think that's why we have a crew of a bunch of archetypes who could quip at each other.
Yeah, there's just nothing there, man. Scrape away any of the like cool stuff about this movie, and there's just kind of nothing underneath. But you wanted to talk about Ripley.
Yes,
so
let's get into Ripley.
Clone
Ripley. What do you think, Ravi, of Clone Ripley? Of what they're doing with her thematically, where they take the character, the performance, anything and everything.
It's very interesting. From what I gather, my voice is broke. From what I gather, reading the Wikipedia page, Sigourney Weaver was initially like hesitant to sign on for another Alien movie for like I think pretty obvious reasons, you know.
Yeah,
like,
she
3 is a little shaky.
She didn't want the character to be kind of like a Halloween situation where it's just kind of overused.
Especially after the way 3 ends with her death, you know, like I can understand how skeptical she would be.
Well, from what I understand, she was actually one rooting for Ripley to die in 3. She wanted that ending to happen.
Which again, cool ending.
Good thematic ending for Ripley. We talked about that in our Alien 3 episode.
Where was I going with this? She signed on because she thought it would be like she read the script that Whedon had at the time, and she thought it would be like an interesting new direction to take Ripley because you wouldn't know like because of her like half xenomorph heritage in this one, as she's like a clone with mixed DNA. She thought it would be like kind of an interesting direction to take the character where you don't really know where her allegiances lie. And I'm like, sure, in theory, that's a neat idea.
But that's not in the script.
I was about to say,
the one that we get.
But in the movie we see, like, it just doesn't really materialize in any meaningful way for me. And like, even if you're not going to go that direction with it, she's just such a like hot and cold kind of character. Like, I really don't know what she's doing at any given point in the movie.
Yeah, and not in like a good way. Not in like good way, no. She's a loose cannon and you're really getting into her psyche. Mm-hmm. It's like a
what on earth is happening?
Yeah, like a what on earth is happening. What?
Where like instead of empathizing with her and being like, oh, I like this is like scary and like maybe she's trying to find her identity in like this world that is so clearly like where she's so clearly disposable and everything.
Yeah.
Instead of like a meaningful exploration of that, like her identity, we just get like this weird.
At any given moment, they're trying to do something that they think is super cool.
Yeah.
They're like, oh yeah, the basketball scene, like, yeah, Ripley's unhinged now, so she'll be balling. We're answering. She balls.
It's so strange,
and like it's really like a tonally just weird scene. And what does it say about her character? It just says that she is a loose cannon who doesn't care if she beats people up for no reason.
But then like also she seems to really care about like Winona Ryder sometimes.
And then like she is shown to be killing aliens left and right. She kills the first xenomorph that gets killed, and she's like, he was in my way.
Even though some of the established tension of like her character allegedly is like, oh, is she okay with killing xenomorphs?
She like rips out the little xenomorph mouth, and she's like, oh, have a souvenir. Like just anything that you would think that Joss Whedon probably was like, oh, that's so cool.
Right.
And then again,
like
later,
the I'm the monster's mother line.
Yeah, and then like 5 minutes later, you have stuff where she's like with the xenomorphs, and like she's like doing weird slow dance,
like quivering in the xenomorph's arms. It's
and they're
so
like
weird.
Face to face, and it's weird tension, and her character just becomes nothingness.
It doesn't make any sense.
Despite there being some very interesting moments, I was actually really sad. For some reason, the theatrical cuts of the movies just hate Newt as a character.
Right?
Because in the theatrical cut of Aliens, they cut out like very important stuff for like Ripley and her daughter and that theme.
As a mother, yeah.
And then in this one, they cut out, for some reason,
all mention of Newt.
They had a thing with like Newt being like mentioned in the thing, and her like vaguely remembering.
She's like,
Newt.
I had a daughter once, or
because
a girl
that's an important
cared about,
because that's a very important part of Ripley's character. But like they cut that out in the theatrical edition.
Oh my goodness, dude.
And then like you have the stuff again, if we go back to the clone room, and you have that stuff, and that feels like it's really trying to set up something. And I think there are 3 key scenes in what it's trying to do thematically. There's that scene,
the clone room scene.
That scene paired with my mother told me that there aren't any monsters or something like that.
That's such a good opening.
So like
line.
that kind of general thing where like she was wrong, there are monsters, and then the kind of idea that she is a monster.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
She's horrified with the fact that she is part monster, and she's this twisted, mangled thing that's not fully what she feels like she should be.
Exactly.
And you have that. Then the second scene is the scene with her and Winona Ryder in the chapel when they have a kind of conversation along those lines.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, how can you live with yourself not being like, not you're a monster kind of thing.
Yeah,
how can
it's
you
like,
live
why
with
should
yourself?
you care about people or anything like that? That's
and then the final key scene to this plays into the themes of the fact that we have kind of what I gathered from the movie as like the alternate Ripley with the xenomorph who is more human than most like xenomorphs. So like the guy with the guy we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
And he looks very similar to some of the messed up clones that you see in the tubes.
Yeah.
Clearly there's a visual pairing going on with that. And Ripley and him seem to clearly have a connection because it's implied that they're very close to being like they're close to the same thing.
I was about to say, you even have that like human xenomorph thing near the end actually mimicking some of the like earlier actions of Ripley, like from one of the earlier scenes.
So you have clear visual things
like
cueing you into this is
parallel.
Supposed to be like her.
Yeah.
And then the final scene that's super important to what they're going for is she's like hugging him and like weird tension stuff going on, and then it turns out it was all a trick, and she kills him, and he horribly screams out in terror and pain as he gets slowly
as his
ripped
innards
apart,
are sucked out through a hole,
and he is screaming out his little human scream with his little sad alien eyes,
it's
and the
saddest
movie
thing
ends.
ever. Oh my goodness!
That what are you supposed to take from that? That is the only driving theme I can think of that they are going for in the movie. The only thing that they give time to actually settle and talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And what is that?
And it's just kind of discarded at the end. I don't know.
Yeah, what is that with the end scene? Like what is that supposed to mean when, again, we are clearly shown the parallels over and over between this creature, right?
Is she supposed
Ripley.
to be like killing the xenomorph part of herself? And is like that supposed to be a good thing? Like, I don't understand what that. It really doesn't make any sense.
And
any lens I try and use to view the rest of the movie based off of like one thing that the movie establishes, it just doesn't match up.
And if you look at that through Winona Ryder's character, who could also be a very interesting character to tie into those themes, who is an android who's really not happy that she's an android, and it feels compelled because of her programming to try and save humans.
Exactly.
Despite and feeling really disgusted with herself that she's not a human.
Yeah.
That's something interesting because that plays into the themes of, again, you are a monster. You're not a human. And but what does that lead to for her character? It effectively leads to nothing, because when they need her to, it's essentially she becomes a tool that they need to use when the plot needs her to use it.
There's no meaningful, like, really conclusion to their, like, the kind of dynamic between the two of them. You get the scene on Earth, which is only in
vague. The special edition, and is very vague.
Very vague. Like, it doesn't really feel like a satisfying conclusion to either of their arcs.
Because they never take the time to give you any conclusion. Like, she never learns any lesson, as far as I can tell,
exactly.
to accept herself, and neither does Ripley, to learn that, like, at least grapple with the fact that she is not fully human any more than being like, oh, ooh.
It's just a mess.
It just doesn't lead anywhere. The entire film, that feels like, again, and those themes, despite the clone scene is like at least over halfway through the movie, I think.
Yeah, no, it is over halfway through.
So
I think it's about halfway through.
About halfway, and then the actual chapel scene where you really get them actually talking about those things.
Yeah,
that is definitely over halfway through. So any semblance of a theme and a drive for these characters and a point is not even introduced until halfway through the movie. And then,
because I mean, even like the scientists or any of the government people aren't given anything.
And then it just kind of I don't know what the ending is supposed to leave you with, quite frankly.
I don't know what the whole movie is supposed to
I don't know what you're supposed to feel when you end it, because again, I kind of feel sad. And Ripley seems really distraught about it. Because again, this little guy, he's screaming. He is like screaming in a very terrifying way.
I mentioned in my review of the theatrical cut that I actually ended up sympathizing or in like connecting more with the xenomorphs in this movie than I did with the human characters, just based purely off of their like how compelling their designs are and how much character that final like xenomorph human thing is given,
which is an interesting idea theoretically, and the fact that
I like the idea
that the xenomorphs are given character that you can empathize with in this, especially being that you have a character that's half xenomorph.
I was about to say, I would think it would be really cool if like by the end point of this movie, like the last act, it's like mostly xenomorphs and like maybe like Winona Ryder and Sigourney Weaver's characters, and like that's it. Like I think that would be a super cool direction to take this, but like they would never do that.
Yeah, right. And it just doesn't feel like anything that you're supposed to do, because clearly it's supposed to be a victory that they kill him and make it to Earth.
Win. Yeah, it's supposed to be a win, but it doesn't feel
Earth
like
is
it
like
to me.
Earth is, you're like, oh, look at how bad Earth looks.
Yeah.
So, and they're like, oh, Earth, that place is trash.
Right.
Like it's better to almost stay with the ship than go to Earth. Like, what is the purpose of that? What are they going for?
This movie leaves me with so many more questions than it does answers.
And again, like you said, anytime you take any given element and compare it to the rest of the
match
film,
it up to another part of the movie.
It doesn't work. Things just fall apart. On top of, I thought this was really goofy. I just want to mention this because I'm thinking about it. If you go to the IMDb page, they have a section for goofs.
Oh no!
And to be fair, a lot of the things put in goofs are often really arbitrary, and I was reading some of them.
They're dumb. They're
and
like
even,
CinemaSins
and even
kind
some of
stuff,
them are just absolutely stupid, and I'm like, really, that's dumb. But it is still really funny. There's just a massive list of like continuity errors and things that don't make sense.
There was a lot more continuity errors in the special edition than there were in the theatrical. But even then, the theatrical has some weird stuff like in its geography and like.
And even then, even if you like take the thing like with the alien queen for some reason laying eggs and then developing,
having a second stage.
I was about to
something.
say then developing its human reproductive system that it got from Ripley, that doesn't really make any sense. And like even if you get over the fact that it's like this weird exposition that is thrown upon you that seems like it was added in post, because that's clearly not what the guy is saying.
I was about to say very clearly ADR'd and not in like a we can't hear what he's saying in the original take kind of way.
Yeah, like he is not mouthing those words.
No.
So like it's clearly this weird thing like why is the alien queen laying eggs? And then when the whole thing is what made it its quote unquote perfect organism was that it grabbed the human reproductive system, so it didn't have to lay eggs and have hosts.
It's so strange.
It just doesn't.
It doesn't make any
sense. It feels actively like it wasn't finished.
Yeah.
Like this could have used more drafts. It really like it's not even fully bad, and that's the thing that kind of kills you while watching it. Is that there are moments that are really fun and there are moments that are really good and there are good ideas and fun character moments and it's all in there, but it's just a mess as is. It's just nothing is cohesive.
Yeah, it's horribly structured and really terribly paced, and like it's just a bad.
And there are lots
kind of movie.
There are lots of things like that if you think about them for even just a little bit, and I hate to harp on any like continuity errors like that, because again it feels very CinemaSins.
Yeah, that's a lame critique of any piece of art.
But there are a genuinely lot of moments in this that are, if you just think about them, they just don't make sense.
Yeah, and
that can be really bad for your movie if that's like even something as stupid as like when Winona Ryder's character gets shot and falls back down into the water, and then like later,
like maybe 5 minutes later,
in a place that was completely
like
cut
inaccessible,
off, and has somehow not killed the guy who went down that direction, because he appears later, but like avoided him and is there now. It just doesn't make sense, and I hate to harp on the fact that doesn't make sense. But there are a lot of elements that
speaks
feel,
to just how sloppy.
Yeah, that feel like it just wasn't finished, and it wasn't that well thought through.
Yeah, man, it's kind of a crushingly like it could have been like easily my favorite Alien movie if it had lived up to all of its like groundwork stuff.
I was going to say, this director I think is a genius pairing with the Alien series.
He could have made like probably the best Alien movie.
And I really wish
it could have been amazing.
But again, what could never have been, because again, this whole thing started because the studio approached Joss Whedon, which is just mind-boggling to me.
I really don't get it.
I just don't see how his style works with Alien.
Yeah, even his early stuff.
I was about to say, even respecting his work, because despite, again, him doing really awful stuff. I don't have
too much respect for him as a person.
I respect some of his work.
Some of his movies.
I just don't see how he was the choice to do a sequel when nobody even really wanted. Like, that was not a thing. Right. That was not a position that was there to really fill. You had a thematic ending to your trilogy. It wasn't something that everybody was asking for. It doesn't really seem like something that makes a lot of sense. And yet that happened. And I don't know. It just seems like a bad series of things.
Yeah, no, it's a defeating... Alien Resurrection, at the end of the day, is a very defeating movie to try and get something out of.
It still can be fun if you turn off your brain and are like, ooh, funny. But it's not going to be scary.
No,
it's not going to be a good sequel to the Alien movies. It's not going to have good characters.
Like I said, I would watch it probably once just for how, like, just the sheer amazing work on all of the alien stuff.
I mean, I'd watch it once anyway because I think it has some merits, I think it's got some interesting ideas.
I mean, I gave it a 3 out of 5. I obviously think it has some merit,
and I think it's cool to think about. I think it's an interesting thought experiment for what an alien movie even is should be.
Yeah,
and just where things went wrong with this. But at the same time, it's I will probably never watch this again. I've seen it twice now, and that's enough.
I think maybe if I'm like watching through all of them again, I'll be like, oh, this will be fun. But I'll probably tune out for a lot of it, having now like watched it twice. And I feel like I've got a pretty good handle on what it is now.
What's crazy too is this is just where the Alien series ends, because any other movies we've gotten have been prequels. So this is just it. It ends with this vaguely weird, doesn't really make sense story, them landing on Earth and being like, well, I guess we're on the run from the government.
Yeah.
And that's it.
And then the end.
That's where we leave Ripley, this character who we followed through so much trouble, turmoil, pain, hardship, with some really interesting themes that tie into.
She's one of the most
interesting and strong female characters, especially of the time.
Yeah, and I would say in like cinema history that I've seen, it's kind of unprecedented to have a trilogy of sci-fi female-led films that are that consistently like good.
And yet your ending movie is the one where she's like, oh, rawr.
Is like very weakly written, and like now there's like weird misogyny and like objectification of female character. It's just such a bad
and also
such a weird
evocative scenes with the aliens, like any scene where she's weird. Really up close with any of the aliens.
I wish I could,
or the weird writhing scene.
I wish I could come up with a good explanation. It's for why they're there. I don't know why they're there.
It feels like it's playing to the theoretical tones of like twisted eroticism that's throughout the series, because that's a very genuine part of the DNA of the Alien series. That was from the very inception of the series. Sexual assault and stuff like that was just immediately what
I was about to say,
the imagery was supposed to invoke.
Literally designed the xenomorph to invoke that.
That was where we started from. And yet in this movie, so I think they saw that. They saw the other movies and they were like, oh yeah, we got to have some weird alien sex stuff.
For no reason.
Just imagery of it anyway.
Yeah.
And then it's there and it's just so
it feels
weird.
Out of place.
And so like you're kind of confused on what's going on in the scene. In fact, the one scene when she falls down into the thing and it's all moving, like, what is that?
I wish I knew what on earth was going on.
Like the entire thing is breathing, even though like is the entire thing becoming like, and like you see different alien bits writhing around, and again it invokes certain things.
There's something there. I don't know what it
again
is.
I referenced Society when I saw it, so it clearly is evocative of things, but for what purpose?
For what reason?
For what I don't know what they're going for. So again,
baffling movie.
I don't. Do you have any other questions? Do you have anything else you want to throw out?
I don't have any other major things to bring up. Really, just we've basically covered all of my big critiques of it, like general critiques and like the stuff I do enjoy about it. Yeah. So I'm pretty satisfied. Any other major things you want to know?
No, I like that's really covers a lot of it, but it's just a baffling movie to think about too. Yeah. And that's why I was very interested, I should say, to do an episode on this, because it's just such a
It's one of the few movies we've done in a while where we've had like a pretty negative opinion on it.
Right. And also, but like it's just a weird movie to talk about.
Yeah. It's just man, it's so disappointing.
Unfortunately, very much the worst of the Alien series.
Yeah. Not even close, really. I have yet to see Alien Covenant.
I was about to say Alien Covenant's the only movie we haven't seen from the series.
If Alien Covenant is somehow worse than this, I really can't envision that ever happening.
I was about to say, I know people don't like Alien Covenant, but a lot of those people didn't like Prometheus, and I really liked Prometheus.
I love Prometheus, my goodness. Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's Alien Resurrection.
That's Alien Resurrection.
You check it out. See what you think about it.
Yeah. I know some people who really enjoy it in spite of like some of its weirder elements. So.
Yeah, if you really enjoy it, let us know. Let us know why. You can find us on Letterboxd. Go to our HQ page. We have an HQ page for Recently Logged on Letterboxd. That's where you should go to do anything.
You can comment on the review log of this episode if you want to tell us something about this.
I was about to say, and we will definitely see it and interact with it. But I'd be very curious to see what you guys think of Alien Resurrection. Very weird movie.
Very weird.
Yeah. Again, I gave it a 1.5 for the theatrical and a 2 for the special.
2 for theatrical, 3 for special for me.
So generous.
I know. I'm so sorry.
All right. Well, we're doing stuff a little differently this week because of scheduling and time and the fact that it's past 1 a.m. right now. We are not going to do a What We Watched segment this week. I know some
our
fans out there
mainstay of
really love our What We Watched. But what we're going to do is we're going to do one of our big What We Watched episodes because we've already missed
after our brief hiatus.
So we'll talk about a lot of movies and we'll have a little bit more time to talk about those movies.
Yes.
So we're going to do that. So stay tuned for that. And also maybe, I don't know if we're going to get to those soon, but maybe Prometheus and Alien Covenant.
Prometheus. It'll probably be a big What We Watched episode next week, and then who knows,
something else
after that, and then Prometheus more than likely.
Yeah, if you guys want us to cover something in particular, again, go to our Recently Logged HQ page and tell us, and we'll probably do it depending on the movie. Yeah. There's a good chance.
There's a decent chance.
So yeah, go do that. And also bring in millions of listeners so we can all quit our jobs.
So we can start monetizing.
Yeah.
Again.
No, but not even that. Not just to monetize. We want to be able to.
It's a cultural mainstay.
Quit our jobs. We'll set up a studio up in.
Ooh, Recently Logged studio.
Yeah, like an actual building studio. They call it like Recently Logged Industries or something.
Ooh, industry. Sounds like we're manufacturing steel or something.
So yeah, tell all your friends and tell your friends' friends and the friends' friends' friends. Wow. And eventually if everybody tells their friends, then we'll cover the entire world. Because everybody
except for the guy who doesn't have friends.
everybody is friends with everybody eventually, I think.
There you go.
So do that.
Do that. It's the greatest growth plan of all time.
It's true. It's that whole get everybody you know to give you $1. And then get everyone they know to give you $1.
$1 million.
And you can get so much money.
Anyway. Thank you for listening.
Bye.
Bye, guys.